So that's a good gateway in, actually. You said you were an apprentice and you did a degree in metallurgy at Manchester. How does one go from doing metallurgy in sort of a degree level to ending up as Labour Party leader at one point?
Pure accident. One of the things I always say to young people is that you can simply do whatever job or career you like, whatever takes your fancy. But if you want to be in politics, I mean, you can, of course, and some people do, go and study PPE at Oxford, politics, philosophy and economics, although Ed Miliband, who did it, says that's a fairly useless degree, and so he should know. But it's not necessary. What you need to do is to identify, to think about things, to identify how you feel, how you react to things, what's your gut instinct, what's your reaction, and identify then which is the party that seems closest to that. There will be a huge amount of variation. Every great political party is already a coalition of different views, but there's a core set of values or gut instincts that binds that party together. And I'll give you a concrete example. In the House of Commons, sometimes there are divisions on something which is not a party political matter. It might be fox hunting, it might be abortion, it might be capital punishment. Almost invariably, the bulk of the Labour Party will be in one place and the bulk of the Conservative Party will be in the other. I mean, it doesn't always apply. Sometimes on some of the social issues now we're all pretty much in the same place. But there are these occasions which are not a matter of party politics, but people take a different point of view because there is a big difference in experience and understanding between people in the different political parties. You know, you don't have to have been a single parent to know what the problems are facing a single parent. But can you imagine ever being in that? Can you empathise with somebody who's got those problems? Because if you can, you'll probably be in one party, and if you can't, you'll probably be in the other one. And that's what it comes down to. So all people need to do is what I did, which is I just joined the Labour Party, and people kept saying to me, why don't you do this? Why don't you stand for so-and-so? And one day somebody said to me, why don't you go and work at party headquarters in the research department? I didn't know they had a research department. And entirely by chance, the then head of the research department was a man who had done an apprenticeship in metallurgy. So when I applied for a job, when I went to the interview, we knew what each other was talking about, and you always had to submit a piece of written work, and my written work wasn't incomprehensible to him. And anyway, he hired me, and ever since, people have kept saying to me, why don't you stand for this, why don't you stand for that? And famously one day somebody said there was a contest for the deputy leadership of the Labour Party, and the BBC had a story that John Smith and I were going to run for it as a leadership team, and we weren't. Not least because I had my husband used to forbid me to say this, but I think I can get away with it now. I had no intention whatsoever of standing to be the deputy leader of the Labour Party. It's a bloody awful job, if you'll excuse my language. Just horrendous. Huge amount of work. You do all the things that the leader doesn't want to do. And a huge amount of responsibility. And I wasn't a mug enough to stand for it. Anyway, it was on the BBC that I was going to stand. And I was horrified because I thought, this is not fair. You know, other people will be standing. Somebody else is going to win. And John Smith has to work with whoever it is, and they mustn't get they mustn't get the impression they're second best, that they're second choice. That's terrible. So I immediately got onto the BBC and said, you've got to put out a denial. So they did. So that was all right. And our phone rang, and it was one of my parliamentary colleagues. And he said, I heard on the BBC that about you and John running this leadership team. And I said, yes, and why not? He said, oh yes, I heard that too. And what I want to know is, why not? And after that, the phone just kept ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing. And by Monday morning, I went into the office, and John came in to see me, and he said, I've come in to tell you you've got to run for the deputy leadership, but I gather from because it was sort of gone round the staff, I gather that you've already come to that conclusion yourself. And so I said, yes, I had. And then, of course, he died completely out of the blue. And that's when I became the leader, on the brink of the only other nationwide test of electoral standing, which is the European elections. We were about 2 or 3 weeks away from the European campaign, and I'd planned it all, and then I had to do it without a deputy leader and without a campaign coordinator.
So, in your time as Foreign Secretary, what do you reckon the most interesting visit or person even that you have ever met is?
Well, I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of interesting people, Nelson Mandela and Barack Obama among them. Good question. Most interesting. Oh, it's really hard to choose. I mean, I had a very good working relationship with Condoleezza Rice, although she was a very different political camp to mine. But as it happened, at the time that I was there, we were trying to get the same things, like we were trying to get a deal with Iran, and she was constructive and helpful. I had, funnily enough, I always felt that I had a good working relationship with a lot of my foreign minister colleagues. And the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia I have a lot of respect for. Very, 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 very smart man of huge experience. So it's really hard to choose, actually, because you're lucky enough to meet all these really remarkable people.